Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. One of the world's largest and most unpredictable of reptiles is the saltwater crocodile of Australia. Known to reach the incredible length of over 20 feet, average adult length is about 14 feet. Because they can be vicious and are temperamental and will rapidly pursue and attack man on land as well as in water, these crocs have a well-deserved bad reputation. In recent years, their numbers have been greatly reduced. In order to better understand the behavior and natural history of the animal, and therefore better protect it, saltwater crocs are presently being caught in baited traps in the coastal rivers of northern Australia and closely studied. Radio telemetry transmitters are then attached to their heads in order to trace their movements, and this allows them to be located immediately through triangulation of the radio signal. Recently, we were invited to observe the studies being conducted on the crocs by Professor Harry Messel, head of the School of Physics at the University of Sydney in Australia. We joined him on his boat here on the Tompkinson River near Maningrida in Arnhem Land of northern Australia, eastward of the city of Darwin. It was an exciting and scientifically valuable penetration into the little-known world of the saltwater crocs of Australia. The Tompkinson River is wide and muddy and deep enough here for our 175-ton, 70-foot vessel, the Harry Messel. Standing at the rail is the man after whom the ship is named, Professor Harry Messel, leader of the scientific team doing research here. Ahead is a flock of birds which are a species of cockatoo, extremely abundant in this northern part of Australia, though they're found throughout most of the country. They're called little corellas. They're a noisy bird, especially fond of river-edged trees. It's time to get into our small boat now to proceed in a shallower part of the river to where the crocs are more abundant. The big ship will continue ahead at a slower pace now, since the river's becoming increasingly shallow. Soon it will have to drop anchor and then serve as a base for the crocodile trapping. At this point, we're 20 miles upstream from the coast, yet there is still a significant rise and fall of the tide here, and the water is definitely salty. There's a difference of 9 feet between high and low tides, and mangrove trees line the edge. Northern coastal Australia once teemed with saltwater crocs, but they're no longer so abundant. Still, there are many in this particular part of the river, and just as we reach the place where we'll go ashore, we've encountered one. Although they often seem very disinclined to move, they're unpredictable and always merit being treated with great caution. It's unusual to see a white-breasted sea eagle perched so close. Often found along large rivers, they're normally shy. Evidently, it's been watching another croc nearby on shore that we've disturbed. It's rare to see one eating during the day. Nighttime feeding is far more common. Although not really competitive with the crocodile, there are some occasions when the eagle takes the same kind of prey. For the time being, we'll be leaving the boat here and head for one of the 3 radio tracking stations that have been set up along the river a little way inland. The character of the terrain will change rapidly as we move away from the water. First, we pass a termite mound area and then enter a region of very red earth. Here we've encountered a small animal that is fairly common in this part of Australia. This is the frilled lizard. My presence causes it to spread the broad fringe of skin around its neck to make itself look more fearsome. That's strictly bluff, because although it has many small teeth, it's really not at all dangerous. We'll move on now to the tracking station and leave this colorful lizard alone. The radio tracking stations are very small, but they serve their purpose well. The antenna picks up signals which are noted visually and audibly by the operator at this station.
Our man in charge of the radio telemetry work being done here is Dr. Michael Yerbury, whose telemetry group built all this tracking equipment. The dial needle indicates the intensity of the signal being received by the rotating antenna. This signal originates from a transmitter on a crocodile that has already been trapped and released. A digital receiver unit shows the magnetic bearing in degrees at which the dish antenna rotating outside catches the signal from the croc at its highest peak. When the peak is indicated on the dial, the movement of the dish is stopped and is locked on the signal. Now, with the exact bearing ascertained, Dr. Yerbury can plot it on his chart, on which the signals from the other two stations have already been plotted. Now, by laying in the signal line he has just received, he is able to locate by triangulation the croc's exact position. With this equipment, it's therefore possible to pinpoint where any transmitter-equipped croc is at any given time. Now we'll check out the croc trapping area.
We've finally reached the area where some of Professor Messel's research team is setting up a crocodile trap for tonight. So we'll give them a hand. An adult saltwater croc is an extremely powerful animal, and so a lot of thought has gone into the development of the trap, which the captured croc can't smash to pieces as soon as it realizes it's caught. The result is a trap made of rope mesh, erected in a box-like shape. Although the trap for catching saltwater crocs looks simple, it has a somewhat involved trigger mechanism. Made of heavy rope mesh, the trap is 20 feet long and box-like, with its open end facing the river. A bait of shark meat is placed here, and when the attracted croc enters and grabs the meat, an attached rope jerks this pin free from these eye bolts, and that causes this weighted trigger arm to fall and pull this rope to snug tight the open end of the trap. That trigger movement also jerks a rope which activates this transmitter, which then broadcasts a specific frequency signal to the ship. It was sundown when we returned to the ship to wait for the signal which would alert us to the capture of a croc. Though it's been a long and tiring day, during which we set several traps, there's not much chance we'll sleep solidly tonight. Everyone is keyed up, knowing almost certainly that at some time during the night, a crocodile will be caught in one of the traps. When that happens, it becomes important to get to the scene before the newly captured croc can either hurt itself with its struggling or somehow tear its way loose. The hours have passed in slow procession, and now the night is more than half over. The ship lies quietly in mid-channel, and in the control cabin, the captain is standing his watch. Abruptly, the alarm signal sounds, filling the cabin with a distinctive beeping that lets him know which trap was triggered. It's the first one we set yesterday. Now an intercom call alerts Professor Messel's team. Obviously, they haven't been sleeping either. We'll be going in 2 boats, the capture team in one, and Professor Messel and I in the other. It won't be easy traveling. If a boat strikes any obstruction, it could capsize or throw someone out. In a river where saltwater crocs live, the peril is obvious. We'll follow them closely. The light makes the night around us seem even darker, but night travel by boat on this river is not a new experience to the scientific team. For 3.5 years, they've been doing this with their project leader, Professor Harry Messel.
Our job has often involved taking spotlight surveys of the crocs at night to determine population levels. Researcher Dr. Graham Webb has located our trap area now, so we'll follow him in. There it is, and it's a good specimen. It's important that a steady light illuminate the area where we're working. We've found that the croc, unable to bite through the ropes of the net trap and getting nowhere with its struggling, will soon give up trying to get away. The powerful jaws must be tied shut by Dr. Webb using a special capture device. A rope will be put over the jaws with a pole, but it isn't easy. The loop has gone over the upper jaw only. One more step is necessary. The lower jaw must be immobilized. The jaw muscles are extremely powerful in closing, but have much less power for opening. Simple rope loops effectively control the jaws and eliminate hazard. With the croc fully under control now, all that remains is to get it into the small boat for transportation to the ship. That's a difficult job with an animal that weighs 1/4 of a ton. The croc appears to be just about the right size for our pilot study, and we'll be attempting to catch 19 more just like it.
The team indeed hopes to catch 20 of the big crocs, but right now they're hoping that none of the other traps will catch anything tonight. None of us care to immediately repeat the effort of the past hour or so. They're still far from finished with the one they've caught. Our 2 boats left the capture site with the 14-foot-long captured croc while still dark, but it was almost dawn when we arrived back at the ship. Professor Messel and I moved into the lead shortly after leaving the trap area to make sure the way for the following boat was free of obstructions. Coming back to the big ship is almost like coming home. The boat with the croc in it pulls up to the port side where there's a hydraulic crane to lift the croc, still in the mesh trap, onto the deck. We'll be mooring our boat here on the starboard side. A heavy-duty crane is necessary to lift the croc aboard. The team will be busy handling the big croc, and so I'll log the relevant data about it as they proceed. Especially important will be the measurement of the croc's head, because the approximate age can be calculated from the length of the head, and this is important to the research team when making study observations with crocs in the wild. This particular croc has a weight of 580 pounds, which is about average for a croc of that length. When encumbered by the net trap and when having the mouth rope shut, crocs tend to give up struggling. This specimen is about 14 feet, and though extremely large specimens are said to be double that length, this one is average. While the team begins their job of removing the croc from the net trap and still keeping it well under control, Professor Messel shows me the solar-powered transmitter. These cells gather and store the solar energy to power the transmitter indefinitely. Each unit is color-coded.
The members of our capture team have finished their mounting of the base plate securely on the croc's head, just behind the eyes. So now all that remains to be done is securing the transmitter unit into place. The base plate is held in place on the croc's head with dental acrylic. The unit is then carefully bolted onto that base plate. The Capture Mark Release project has been occurring for 3 years without telemetry. But now, through the use of solar-powered telemetry units, we'll learn new information for preserving and increasing the species. The telemetry rig Crocs, when released, provide important information on the habitat, movement, habits, and breeding of the crocodiles in this river system. Another part of the study shows us that, contrary to popular belief, fish are not a major item in the croc's diet. Mostly, the smaller crocs eat crabs, prawns, and insects, and the larger ones concentrate on birds and mammals. Thus far in this project, we have captured and released a total of over 1,500 individuals. About 300 of these have been recaptured once or twice. Now, in releasing the jaw ropes, we've come to a dangerous moment. Although surprisingly docile and quiet when still tied up, the crocodile might now try to bite or lash out with its tail. As soon as the last of the restraining ropes are removed, and the croc realizes it is no longer tied, its lethargy vanishes, and it immediately heads for freedom. One last check has to be made to list this as an ideal capture and release. We have to know if the radio signal being beamed from the transmitter box atop the croc's head is being received at the distant tracking stations, so location of this croc through triangulation can be properly carried out. I am assured that at the tracking station we visited yesterday, Dr. Yerbury's equipment is receiving the new signal perfectly. The results of our program are expected to provide a great wealth of new data about an animal heretofore greatly feared, but about which we knew very little.
With the dedication Professor Messel and his team are bringing to this project, we will learn how to save, protect, and increase the population of the saltwater crocs of Australia. One might question why certain large, unpredictable, and sometimes quite dangerous animals, as the saltwater crocs, should be studied at all. These crocs have been decimated by hide hunters to the point where the population levels have fallen alarmingly. The research being done now is extremely important because in order to return them to a safe population level and thereafter wisely conserve them, it is necessary to know all we can about them. Besides, saltwater crocs are also somewhat valuable as natural scavengers and as a natural check on possible overpopulation of other species. As with every species of wildlife in the world, the saltwater croc has its place in the natural scheme of things, and we owe it to the species and to ourselves to learn to conserve in proper natural balance all of the species of the wild kingdom.